Right, so today I'm going to be taking a look at a SRAM EXO Eagle transmission AXS group set. I'm beginning to think that the people who come up with these names at SRAM are paid by the word, but it comes in this straightforward box. So it's a box within a box. This is just the shipping box that it comes in. We'll just open this up. And then inside you've got the actual main box. So this main box just has the EXO logo at the top, it's got the SRAM logo, and then it's got the new style Eagle logo, which has been debossed into the top of it. And then on the front it's got some illustrations of a mountain and some more logos. And this just opens up with a flap at the front and then just lifts up to reveal the contents. So first up, you've just got some paperwork which directs you to SRAM's website. I will be leaving links in the description to SRAM's YouTube channel showing you how to install this and set it up. Then you've got a sticker sheet, so you can put these on your frame or wherever you want to put them. I always like to put stickers in with everything. A little bit of cardboard. Next up you've got the new flat top style chain. It comes with a nice handy cut guide on it. This is the black version. They do it in a couple of different versions, obviously, depending on which group set you've got. But I'll also leave a link in the description to the setup guide for this. So what you would do is you put in your frame manufacturer, and then you put in what type chainring that you're using, and then it'll tell you how many links you need to remove, and you can just use this handy cut guide. Next up, you've got the mech itself, or the derailleur. Then you've got the non-drive side crank arm. So you can see, got quite a distinctive look to them. And you've got a little bag that has some bottom bracket spacers in. Then you've got the drive side crank arm with the chainring and bash guard fitted. And you've got a battery. You've got the SRAM, I believe they call this the Pod Controller. This is the ultimate version of it. Then you've got the battery charger, USB cable, and then this is a little packet that contains some covers for the buttons on the pod. If you want to swap them over, I'll show you that in a minute. And then finally at the bottom, you've got the cassette. Here's all the parts laid out. I'm going to start with the crankset because I think it's the most visually appealing. So quite distinctively it's got a hole actually in the crank arm, and the way that they've done it, it's actually forged. So you can see quite how thin that is. They've removed quite a lot of material. And then they machine it on the upper part of the arm so you don't get any rub, so it should stay visually quite appealing with use. Then it's got some bash guards built in onto the chainring. They're mounted via these 4 bolts. And then it's got a 32 tooth chainring. It's using their new style 8 bolt. Well, I say new style, it's what they've been using on their road cranks for a while. But for the mountain bike it used to be the 3 bolt. I actually wish they'd left as was because it was much easier to deal with. I believe this is for the compatibility of their power meter, but they actually do a power meter that goes into the crank arm, so this isn't actually going to affect this model. It's more for the XX model. Just wanted to show you a visual comparison next to another crankset. So here I've got a race face ride crankset. Uses a similar sort of layout. This is a direct mount as well. The only difference with this is that you're going to need a tool to be able to remove the cinch chainring. That's the same for the Shimano setup as well, where they have a customized tool for removing their direct mount chainrings. Onto the non-drive side crank arm. So at the bottom it's got a little bag that's got some pedal washers if you need to use them. The layout is the same as the drive side. It's got a hole in it, and then it's quite thin on the actual arm. And then this uses a dub wide spindle. So this is compatible with both boost and super boost. It gives you a 55mm chain line. And then here it's got the preload collar. Unfortunately it's one of SRAM's flimsy plastic ones with the ridiculously tiny screw which you can strip and these end up cracking. I wish they would have gone to a metal preload collar, similar to this Cane Creek one, which has a nice substantial bolt which you're not going to round off and it's not going to crack. It's a bit unfortunate that at this price point they're still using these flimsy plastic things. I say you can get hold of either these Cane Creek ones, or I believe Muck-Off do them as well. They're not very much if you want to swap it out, but again, it's a cost you really shouldn't have to be doing. I'm not sure why they keep putting these things on. Forgot to say, now these don't come with crank boots, but if you do want to run a crank boot on them, you can still fit these race face alloy crank boots on. Obviously this piece isn't going to line up completely, but you'll be able to squeeze it and make it work. Just wanted to quickly talk about the bottom bracket. So obviously this Groupset doesn't come with one. I'm going to be using this press fit SRAM one. It's fairly cheap. It comes with a couple of spacers, as well as obviously the ones that you get with the Groupset. I'll leave a link in the description to a spacer chart, which you just need to work out which bottom bracket you've got and then how many spacers you need to install on your frame. Have a quick look at the battery and the charger. It's just a same setup that they've had since the first AXS. So standard battery, has a little hook tab on one end. You just push that in, press it down, and when you've charged it, just pop out. Has some little LED indicators on the side. Unfortunately, this is micro USB, which is an absolute pain in the ass, mainly because say you're traveling and you forget to take your cable, well, you're not going to be able to charge your gears, and not everybody's got a micro USB cable these days. So what I've personally done is I just bought one of these aftermarket USB-C ones. This is a dual charging one. So because I've always got a USB-C cable, I haven't necessarily always got a micro USB cable. They do a full version of this battery charger, and it is USB-C, so I'm not sure why they haven't changed this over yet. Probably just stock. I assume they'll swap it over in time. So these little red battery covers have a handy little indicator on them, so you can just set them to remind you whether the battery's been used or not. I would recommend getting an extra battery. What I do is I keep one in my bag in case you forget to charge it or put it on the actual bike the night before. It's always helpful to have just a spare one. Next I'm going to move on to the controller. So this is what they refer to as their pod controller. Now this is the ultimate version of it. They also do the standard version. The main difference on that is that it has flat buttons and it doesn't have the ability to swap the buttons out. The main visual indicator of it is that it doesn't have this silver piece in the middle. You can actually buy this top section if you want to have the ability to swap over the buttons. So what it actually has is it has some concave buttons installed, and these little red tabs are for the adhesive. I'll show you that now. So you've got the little packet that comes with it, and this has got some convex buttons. So what you can do is, say you don't like the way this is set up and you want to differentiate between the two different buttons, you just get a screwdriver, or in this case I'm just going to use a spoon, and you just put it under this little tab. Once that's off, you'll see there's a little nub that protrudes in the middle with two little holes either side. So on the back of the button covers you've got some adhesive. This is what the red tab is covering. So once you've decided on what setup you want, you can actually stick them in place just to make sure that they hold on, because they're actually just held on by these small hooks. I'm not sure if you can see them, but they're pretty small, so I wouldn't be surprised if they would snap fairly easily. So you just line them up and then just push them into place. So as you see, at the bottom we've got a concave, and at the top we've got a convex button. And then just looking around this pod controller, so on one side it's got an LED, which I assume this will go red and green depending on when you're syncing it or changing the buttons. And then on the other side it's got a link-in button. And then on the bottom it has the little guides to undo the battery. It's a 2032, so nice and easy to get hold of. Should last about a year or so. They have on my other ones. Moving on to the clamp. So this has indicator marks on the side, so you can just rotate it into whatever position you want. It just mounts straight onto the bar. Uses a T25 to tighten up. They also do what they call the bridge clamp, which mounts it directly onto SRAM matchmaker brakes. There's also one for Hope brakes, which is what I'm going to be using, and I'm sure someone's going to work out a way to attach them to Shimano brakes in the future. But the way that you get this off is you line up this little point here, and then you just wiggle it off, and then you just got the pod by itself. Now what you can do is you can remove this top piece that I was talking about if you want to upgrade your standard version to the ultimate version, so you can change the buttons, and you do that simply by just pushing up on that section and it comes away. As you see, it's just two buttons that are actually being pressed. So I'm not entirely sure about this design. I know they are actually doing a prototype version of some buttons for this, just to try and adjust the ergonomics of it. So I feel these buttons being the same size and so close together is probably going to be problematic for shifting. Just for comparison, I'll bring in the old style AXS shifter or controller. This is the later version, the revised version, with the slightly different rocker. Here's the original paddle that came on it. I actually got pretty used to this version. The way I had it set up was to shift into harder gears, I'd be pressing this, and then into easier gears, it would be this one. It's actually two buttons, but it makes it look like it's three, so that is the same as that, and that one pushes up. So one button is there, you see, when you push, presses down, and this one presses down there. You can interchange these, so if you really don't like this, you could try this one as well. It has the older style matchmaker compatibility, so it integrates nicely with a number of different brakes. Next thing, we'll take a look at the cassette. So the thing I like about the SRAM cassettes is that they're all held into one piece, so there's nothing flapping around, and the lock ring is actually integrated into them, so you don't have to worry about that or the cogs getting loose. So the way it works is they use their X-Dome system, which is where they machine the first part all out of one piece of steel, and then they have two steel cogs which are actually pinned onto the largest alloy ring at the back. So if you see here, you can see how they're pinned in place onto this large ring, and then in here you can see a setup cog. And for a visual comparison, I'll just compare it next to a rainbow cassette. So this is the previous generation. Now as you can see, the stepping is actually much better. It's basically the same up until the 32 tooth, and then it goes slightly differently. So as you can see, there's quite a large jump here between the 42 and the 52, whereas now they've actually smoothed it out, so it's a jump from a 44 up to the 52. It's very similar in terms of layout with the Shimano 12-speed now, except obviously this is a 51, so slightly different teeth, but basically the same, the way they've laid it out. This uses the XD driver body, as opposed to this one, which uses the Shimano micro spline. Moving on to the derailleur. As you can see, it's quite a chunky beast. The main reason for this is effectively it now has the derailleur hanger built into the mech itself, because it mounts to UDH compatible frames, and they have increased the size of the pulley wheels. So they've upgraded it from a 12 to 14 to a 14 to 16. So we'll start here at the front. So it has the button here for pairing and linking. You can also use this for changing gears as well. And here's the UDH mounting system. So obviously you would remove your UDH hanger, and then it has a bolt here, it has a bushing, which is this red plastic piece, and it has a metal knurled ring for setting it up. And then it has your battery connector here, the little release tab. I tend to keep this piece in my charger, so when you're going to wash the bike, you'll always know where this is. You just put the battery into charge, and then you can pop that back into the mech when you're washing it. And at the front here, now this is where the majority of the damage happened on the previous version, and I'm sure that's where it's going to happen on this version. So they've made these parts replaceable. You can replace all three of these parts. They come as a kit. It's the skid plate and cover kit, I believe it is. And you can undo them at the bottom here. And at the front, you've got the setup key and the cage lock. You can see at the bottom here, it has the A and B positions. And all you need to do is either use a screwdriver or just use your fingers. You should just be able to pull it out. And you would rotate that into whichever position the setup guide tells you to use. This is obviously the cage lock as well. So it's got two positions. It's got the setup bit. You just push down there. Or it's got the full lock for removing the wheel when it's on the bike. And then looking at the cage, I'm not sure if you can see that, but it looks bent. It's actually purposely bent in this position to keep the chain line right. But just to let you know, when you actually see it, it's not actually damaged in any way. Just going to check the tension of the clutch spring. So it's significantly increased on this. On the previous generation, it tended to be a little bit weak. The good thing about these is you can also replace this whole cage mechanism. All you do is just push backwards on it and it comes off. So you can buy a whole replacement section here, which means you don't have to worry about the clutch spring becoming loose over time. Here it is in comparison with the previous generation of the AXS. This is obviously the GX version of it. As you can see, the pulley wheels are substantially bigger on the new one, and the cage is obviously proportionally increased in size. Just wanted to see if they've got rid of the play that happened on the previous generation. So on the previous generation, when you twisted it, you'd get quite a lot of movement on it, and how that would develop over time. On this one, you should be able to hear this. Now you can get rid of that with a bit of lubrication, but it is annoying that it develops. So what it is this actual play at the pivot points. Just wanted to quickly see how these move. Now obviously one of the benefits that they claim on this is that it will only shift into the gear when it's actually ready to shift into it. So it has a little bit of lag. So if you see, I'm going to start pressing the buttons. But if you press them all, you'll see that it has a slight bit of lag. Yeah. It's sort of trying to catch up. Whereas the previous generation, you could just go straight through the gears as quick as you wanted. That's not so much of a problem unless you're riding on an e-bike, where these really don't work that well, mainly because you end up changing gears too quickly, whereas this one is much more controlled, so it should be much better for e-bikes. Just wanted to quickly show you what the derailleur looks like when it's mounted onto a frame. So here I've got a Evil Reckoning LS frame, and it's currently got its UDH hanger fitted. So I'll just show you what the previous generation would look like. Undo this main bolt here. It should remove the bushing sleeve, which you just push into the frame. Then you just put the derailleur over and tighten up. Quick check of the weight. So we'll start with the crank arms. And then the cassette. The pod controller. The derailleur with the battery fitted. And the chain. Now obviously this is going to be uncut. I'm going to be installing this Groupset onto my Pivot Firebird frame. If you're interested in that, just keep an eye on the channel. It'll be in one of the upcoming videos where I install this, and then later on I'll be doing a review comparing it with the previous generation to see if it's worth the upgrade. So that was a quick look at a SRAM XO Eagle transmission axis group set. If you've got any comments or questions, please feel free to leave them in the box below. And if you got this far into the video, I do appreciate it, and thanks for watching.